Hey everyone, Final here. Today, I'll be showing you my quick and easy paint scheme for a chapter champion from the Victrix Honour Guard. So first things first, I mounted everything up as sub-assemblies and then primed them all with Chaos Black. In my experience, Chaos Black has the best coverage, and any spots that I missed just look like shadows. For the first sub-assembly, I attached the legs and the torso because it's kind of a weird build. I also attached the tabard and the sheath, just because they don't really get in the way. As always, I keep the power pack separate, as well as the helmet. I also kept both weapon arms off. That way, I can get maximum access to the weapon without worrying about hitting the body with my paint. For the right arm, I did something a little weird. The tassel has two connection points, one on the shoulder pad and one on the chest aquila. If I attach it to the weapon arm, which is what I did, it just floats in the air like this. However, if I attach it to the aquila, it gets in the way and makes everything harder to paint. Now that that's over with, let's get to painting. The first color that I'll be using will be Macragge Blue. Macragge Blue over Chaos Black will take a couple of coats, so don't worry if the first one looks really bad. I usually do about 2 or 3 thin coats of Macragge Blue. Oh, and don't forget about the other sub-assemblies. It's good to get all of the base coating out of the way at once. Also, don't worry if you hit somewhere that's not supposed to be blue. We'll be fixing that all up later. And here's what the first coat looks like. It's pretty splotchy, but it'll get better with more coats. And with that being said, let's get to it. Now I'll actually be doing a third coat as well. And here we are. 3 nice thin coats of Macragge Blue. Now, I'm going to ruin all of that hard work with a wash of Nuln Oil. The goal is to get the Nuln Oil to pool in the recesses. We'll fix up everything else later. And here it is, nice and dirty, base coat ruined. I'm going to let it dry for about half an hour and then come back and fix everything up. And I'll do that with a heavy dry brush of Macragge Blue. I want the Macragge Blue to avoid the recesses and color everything else back in. I'm going perpendicular from all the recesses, that way the bristles don't accidentally go in. And of course I do the same thing on the sub-assemblies. There we go, looking a lot better. I've cleaned up a lot of the tide marks left behind by the Nuln Oil. Next, I'll be doing a light dry brush on the edges using Calgar Blue. Just a quick note, the Victrix Honour Guard models have a lot of gold trim, so don't worry about getting the edges of things that'll be gold later. And there we are, all the blue edges have a nice subtle highlight. If you want it to be more prominent, you can manually edge highlight instead. Now before I forget, I'll be painting the joint areas with Black Templar. You can also use Black Legion instead if you want. I just find that it's too dark and contrasts too harshly with the model. And here's what everything looks like so far. Next up, I'll be moving away from the body and working on the sword blades. I'll be painting the blades with Leadbelcher. I'll also be painting the same Leadbelcher onto the vents of the power pack. The first coat of Leadbelcher will look pretty splotchy, with a lot of the Chaos Black poking through. I'll definitely be putting on a second coat, but it's best to wait for this to dry first. Metallic paints take a little bit longer to dry, so I'll usually wait about 10 or 15 minutes between coats. That way it can look nice and smooth. After giving the second coat a chance to dry, I'll be washing all of it with Nuln Oil. Once the Nuln Oil dries, you can see that it gives the blade a nice gradient. Now, I'll go in and dry brush the edges of the Leadbelcher using Stormhost Silver. Alright, back to the main body. I'll be using Rhinox Hide to paint the leather. Also, this might seem weird at first, but trust me, I'll be painting Rhinox Hide on anything that's gonna be gold. I've gotten this tip quite a few times, and I've definitely embraced it. So that'll be the Aquila, the emblems, the trim, the weapons, and of course, the helmet. I know it looks bad right now, but don't worry, it'll save a lot of time down the road. Once I'm all done with the Rhinox hide, I'll be using Agrax Earthshade to wash only the leather. And then after giving the shade paint some time to dry, I'll be dry brushing the leather with Gorthor Brown. And here's where I'm at right now. Let's go and take care of the rest of that Rhinox hide. I'll be going in and painting Retributor armor on all of the bits that are supposed to be gold. Normally when I paint gold, it's over Chaos Black. I'll always caution that the first coat looks terrible and that we'll need 2 to 3 coats to get a solid Retributor armor color. As you can see here, with the brown undercoat, it's actually pretty solid after 1 coat, plus a few touch-ups here and there. A lot better than 2 to 3 with waiting time in between. Of course, I'll have to paint up the rest of the gold, and also the helmet, which is mainly gold. I'll actually be focusing on the helmet now, but whatever I'm doing here, I'm doing to the rest of the gold as well. It looks pretty good so far. I'm actually going to put a second coat of gold on the helmet. It's a prominent part of the model, so I want it looking its best. After the Retributor armor dries, I'll be washing it all with Reikland Flesh Shade. Remember to apply this to the rest of the gold as well. There we are. All of the recesses are nice and shaded. I'll give it some time to dry. Once the Reikland Flesh Shade is dry, I'll be going in and doing a heavy dry brush with Retributor armor, avoiding the recesses of course. It'll make the gold nice and shiny again, but also leaving the shadows in the recesses. After that's done, I'll go and do a very light dry brush with Liberator Gold on just the edges. And here's the resulting gold. Next up for the helmet is that plume, which I'll be painting with Gray Sear. This could take 2 to 3 coats. Most of the plume is still Chaos Black. Once that's done, I'll shade the plume with Nuln Oil. I'll let it dry, and then do a light dry brush using Ultramarine Gray. That'll give some nice variation to the bristles. Lastly for the helmet, the eye lenses. I've seen these painted either red or green, but it doesn't really matter. My first step is always to use Stormhost Silver as a base. Give it some time to dry, and then I'll be going in with Blood Angels Red. If you're making yours green, you can use Warp Lightning Contrast. And that's it. The helmet is all done. Now let's work on the pauldrons. For the trim, I started off with an undercoat of Gray Sear. Followed by a layer of Ultramarine Gray over it. For the Ultra Inscription, I used Nuln Oil, thinned 1:1 with Lamian Medium. Thinning it down helps it wick better, and any spillover can be corrected with Ultramarine Gray later. Finally for the tassels, I'll be using Mephiston Red. Just be careful not to hit anything else. I'll wash the Mephiston Red with Nuln Oil, and once it's dry, I'll do a dry brush using Evil Sun Scarlet. And here's how the finished tassel looks. For the parchment, I'll be basing first with Rakarth Flesh, followed by a wash with Agrax Earthshade, thinned 1:1 with Lamian Medium. And then the last major detail in the armor, the Crux Terminatus. For that, I'll start with Mechanicus Standard Gray. Sorry about the shaky camera work, it's in an awkward place. I will then shade it with Agrax Earthshade. Once the shade dries, I'll highlight it with Dawnstone. Because it's so close to everything else, I can't do a dry brush here. Now that I'm done with the major details, I'll be painting up the smaller ones, things like the rivets in the armor, metal links between the leather, and whatever this is that I missed earlier. And last but not least, I'll paint the power field generators with Frostheart, thinned 2:1 with Contrast Medium. And that's it. Let's take a look at how everything looks. And then, after some assembly and basing, we're finally done. 1 chapter champion for the Ultramarines Victrix Honour Guard. This one was definitely a fun model to paint, and I can't wait to paint the rest of the squad up. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.